Okay, so your exterior at this point, your 1-point exterior, should have a door on each one of your buildings. Could be double doors or just a single door. And a window, at least one, on each one of your buildings. The windows could be below the horizon line or above the horizon line. You're just going to make sure that the thickness of the wall, if it's below the horizon line, you're seeing at the bottom, even if it's a window or a door. And if it's the thickness of the wall and it's above the horizon line, you'll see that at the top. And again, anything on the left-hand side, so windows or doors on the left-hand side, you'll actually see the thickness on the right side of that door or window. If you're putting a window or a door on the right side building, so the building's on the right-hand side of your paper, then you're going to see the thickness on the left of that door or window. So we're only going to add one more thing to this exterior to finish it out, and that is a row of lampposts. And they are going to be going back on our sidewalk here in 3D space towards our vanishing point. So I start by just making a simple lamppost at the bottom corner of my sidewalk here on the left-hand side. So I'm going to start with just a simple circle for the bottom, or an ellipse, an oval, for the bottom of my lamppost. Then I'm just going to do a line straight up. I can use my ruler if I wanted to, make it a little bit straighter. And then at the top, I'm just going to make a triangle. You can make a fancier lamppost if you wanted to. You don't have to. Right now we're just learning the basic construction, and we're going to have this go back into 3D space. So I want my lampposts to look like they're getting smaller as they go back, corresponding with the size of the buildings. And that's what's going to make it look like it's disappearing back in 3D space. So I need to make like this tunnel that each one of my lampposts is going to live in. So at the bottom of this oval that I just drew, I'm going to take that point there. I'm going to line that up with my ruler, with my vanishing point at the center of my paper. And I'm going to draw very lightly back towards my vanishing point. So I know that my lamppost can't be any lower than the line that I just drew. They can't be outside of that. I'm going to take the same thing with the top. So the top of that triangle I just made for the top of my lamppost. I'm going to line that up with my vanishing point again in the center of my paper, and I'm going to draw a line lightly towards my vanishing point. And I'm taking it all the way back this time. I can always erase that line out later if I were to finish this drawing. So now I know each one of my lampposts has to fit between the top line and the bottom line. It can't be any taller than that, it can't be any lower than that, or it's not going to look proportionally accurate. So again, that thing that we did with the road, where it got smaller and there was less space between it as it approached my horizon line and my vanishing point, that same principle is going to happen over here. Again, that is called atmospheric perspective. So the ones up front are closer to us are going to be bigger, and the ones as they're going back in space are going to look smaller and smaller. We're going to draw them smaller. So my next one I'm going to put kind of in here on my second block. It doesn't have to line up in between your sidewalk lines. You can just space them out how you want. But I'm going to draw another circle here, or an ellipse, an oval at the bottom. I'm going to draw a vertical straight up until it's close to the top, and then my triangle at the top for my lamppost. So you can tell again that since I made this tunnel, I know exactly where to put my lamppost. It can't be any lower than that line that I drew that converges back, and it can't be any taller than the line that I drew that converges back at the top. So my next one that I'm going to do, I'm going to skip a row and go back over here. I'm the artist, I get to decide how many I want along here. Again, I start with that oval shape. I'm going to draw a vertical straight up from that gets close to the top of that kind of tunnel line, but doesn't touch it, and a triangle at the top. So again, they're getting smaller and smaller. I might shade these in so you can see them a little bit better. Shade them in at the top and the bottom, lightly. And I'm going to do a couple more. So again, at the bottom over here, I'm going to start with a little ellipse. See, my ellipses are getting smaller too, so they're not as big as the very first ones because of atmospheric perspective. Things that are closer to me are bigger. Things that are farther away from me in space are smaller. So smaller ellipse with a vertical that comes straight up from that until it gets close to the top, and a triangle at the top. I'm going to shade those in. I'm going to do one more. So tiny little oval back there. A vertical that goes straight up, close to the top, and then a triangle at the top. So I've got this row of lampposts going back in 3D space. I'm going to do one more row, this time on the right-hand side of my paper. So I'm going to start with an ellipse at the bottom again. Again, this one's going to be bigger because it's closer to me. And I'm going to shade that in. I'm going to do a vertical straight up from that. A vertical that's parallel to the sides of my paper. I'm the artist, I can decide how tall I want it to be. And then I'm going to do a triangle at the top. Just shade that in again so you can see it. Now, so I know where to place my next lamppost going back in space. I'm going to create that tunnel that goes back towards my vanishing point. So the side of that oval that I drew for the bottom of my lamppost here, I'm going to line that up with my vanishing point in the center, and I'm going to draw lightly a line that goes back all the way towards the vanishing point at the bottom there. Do the same thing for the top. So the top of that triangle, that's the top of my lamppost, that is going to line up with my vanishing point in the center, and I'm going to draw again back. So I know that each lamppost that I make has to now fit within this space. It can't be any lower than that bottom line, can't be any taller than that top line. So I'm going to kind of go opposite the lamppost that I just made, making an oval shape there. Again, it's smaller than that first one because it's going back in 3D space. An atmospheric perspective tells me that it has to be smaller. I'm going to do a vertical straight up from there, close to that top line but not touching it, and a triangle at the top. Shade that in. Again, I'm going to kind of come across as if I were doing this. Could put it in a horizontal if I wanted to. I can just kind of eyeball it. But I'm going to put my other lamppost close to that. Again, start with a small oval that I shade in. A vertical that goes straight up from that. Close to the top but not touching. And a triangle at the top. And do two more. So across from this one. And do a small oval there. Shade that in. A vertical that goes close to the top but doesn't touch. And a triangle at the top where it meets that converging line. And one more, way in the back here, a tiny little one. A little small oval, shade that in. A vertical that goes straight up close to that converging line but doesn't touch. And then a triangle at the top. And that finishes out my 1-point exterior. It should have 6 buildings, 3 on the left-hand side of my road, 3 on the right-hand side of my road. Each building should have a door or a way in. And then each building should have at least 1 window. It can be above the horizon line or below the horizon line, with a row of lampposts going down our street towards the vanishing point.